Hello. Hello everyone. Yeah, I hope you can see me right now. So here we are at the first session of 10th class mathematics in and on what we're doing this time. And what we are looking at is that we are looking at real numbers as a chapter, and we will be going ahead and sort of diving deep into the reasons of why we have the entire concept of real numbers, what do we do, and why were humans in the need of this, for which we will be having a little bit of context. हम क्या करेंगे, आज शुरू करेंगे हमारा 10th क्लास चैप्टर, और इसके इसके अंदर हम डीप डाइव करेंगे कि रियल नंबर होते क्या है, इसके रेलेवेंस क्या है, एंड थिंग्स ऑफ दीज सॉर्ट्स, एंड इवेंचुअली लीड टू the deeper understandings of this chapter. So it's good to see you guys, and this is my first time streaming on TikTok here with you guys, and we have this mini session today. So we will be touching a little base on how do we begin the entire concept, and just understand कि ये जो हमारा chapter है, ये one of the most important chapters in 10th class mathematics है. Reasons being that we will be learning a lot of concepts in this particular lesson which we will be using across our understandings in higher mathematics, and this is fundamentally gonna change the way in which you look. It's gonna be a fantastic experience. Just so you know, I am Neelakanta Bhanu. Right there on the screen, I am the world's fastest human calculator. What that means is that I hold a few world records for being the fastest ह्यूमन कैलकुलेटर इन द वर्ल्ड. सो इस बात का अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्या है कि मैं सकता हूँ एट द स्पीड ऑफ शकुंतला देवी एंड पीपल लाइक दीज इन द पास्ट. मैं उनका रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक कर चुका हूँ. सो it's good to see you guys with the campaign Math with the Fastest Human Calculator, and we will be beginning our class any moment. So let's quickly start off into our lesson for the day, and let's go ahead. So all right, there we go. Yeah, so the first chapter, for you to understand this, you need to understand a little more about how the entire numbers have come into existence. क्योंकि हम ना we will be taking a route of how numbers have come into existence, and we will be using this as our fundamental to understand कि real numbers शुरू कैसे हुए हैं. So for you guys to understand this, let's look at how the origin of numbers started. So it is known historically that numbers have originated way back in time. Humanity जब शुरू हुआ है, even in the pre-stone age and things of these, and उस time पे there were prehistoric human beings who were cavemen, who were people from the Stone Age, who started off by counting the numbers they had by looking at the number of sheep and the cattle they rear. This is the cattle rearers, very old times, prehistoric times, which includes probably sometimes around 20,000 BC or 30,000 BC. 30,000 40,000 साल के पहले एक फार्मर या एक शेपर्ड समवेयर सेड दैट मेरे पास बहुत सारे घोड़े हैं, बहुत सारे शीप हैं, पर इनको मैं ट्रैक करने के लिए मुझे एक मैकेनिज्म चाहिए. सो ही स्टार्टेड राइटिंग डाउन एंड इंस्क्राइबिंग दीज ऑन द वेयर, सेइंग दैट एक लाइन करूँगा तो 1 है, 2 लाइन करूँगा तो मेरे पास 2 है, 3 लाइन करूँगा तो 3 है. एंड दैट इज हाउ टैली मार्क्स केम इनटू बीइंग. सो टैली मार्क्स में हम क्या करते हैं, 1 2 3 4 5 एंड फिफ्थ के लिए हम ऐसे क्रॉस करते हैं. एज आई मैंशनड हियर, द टैली मार्क्स वर अ वेरी कॉमन. के लिए हम ऐसे क्रॉस करते हैं. एज आई मैंशनड हियर, द टैली मार्क्स वर अ very common here. The tally marks were a very common way in which people looked at these things. So ये शुरुआत ऐसे हुई है and the numbers came into being in this way, and इसके बाद people have started using numbers for multiple different things, right? So इसमें क्या क्या और चीज़ें हैं. Later on 20 represent करना है तो people used to write these. So to write these 1 2 3 4 5 cross it, 1 2 3 4 5 cross it, 1 2 3 4 5 and cross it. ये जो था, this was a relatively harder thing to do. So इसमें थोड़ा tricky था and people said that अगर हमको ये करना है तो फॉर रिप्रेजेंटिंग लेट्स से 100 है वो उसके लिए थोड़ा हार्ड था. सो पीपल हैड अ प्रॉब्लम. 100 के लिए इतनी बार लिखना वाज अ प्रॉब्लम. सो पीपल स्टार्टेड यूजिंग relatively complex mathematical systems to make things easier. So that's when Roman numerals came into being. Roman numerals were where people started representing bigger units of numbers by things like these. So tally marks में हमने जो पहले किया है वो तो था कि एक line represents one, and later Roman numerals में people started representing. This was around 3000 4000 BC, and people started representing what do we say, these Roman numerals, the numbers in terms of Roman numerals, where they started using 1 as a 1 and 5 as a 5 and so on and so forth. So that's how people started going into it, and it eventually went into making people understand कि ये जो चीज़ है, how was this forming a basis of what the current system today entirely is about. So Roman numerals were used historically. If you see Roman kingdom में या इधर में, that Roman numerals formed and were used extraordinary. They were from the Roman origins and were supposed to be one of the biggest biggest keys which these people had in terms of saying कि अच्छा ये जो है something which is helping the global trade. So after the Roman numerals came into being, people started looking a little bit more into what the other things are. So that's when the first time in the history the number 0 was invented. So post the Roman numerals, if you've seen, if we have mentioned, the number 0 was invented. I would say invented because ये जो 0 number है ये उतना intuitional number नहीं है. तो usually हमारा क्या होता है is that people started counting by tally numbers, people started counting. So it was थोड़ा natural कि people use their hands for counting 1 2 3 4 5 and so on. It was relatively easy for us to understand कि हम हाथ use क्यों कर रहे हैं, and this was used, hands were used as a way in which people sort of represented कि ये नंबर क्या है, ये नंबर क्या है, ये नंबर क्या है. हाथ से people have represented, but in the hands having no numbers at all was not a number by itself. 0 था कि नंबर मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है या हाँ, पर इतने हजार सालों से जब people started using numbers, even Roman numerals में, tally marks में, there is no representation for the number 0, and that is very interesting for you guys to observe, because the number 0 forms the basis of what we call the number system, and that is very very important for us to understand how numbers lay existence. So if you look a little deeper and into this, let's look at it. Let's look at a little deeper into this. Let me see if I can convert this into Actually, never mind. We can go ahead with this for now. Yeah, so the number 0 was invented. The number 0 was a very important number because 0 formed the crux of what the number systems are. What is a number system? Number system is where we have repetitive representation of numbers. अभी Roman numerals में क्या है? 1, 5, 7, 11. And after a point, if you want to represent a very big number, let's say like 50, what could you do? You could either represent them as 5 tenths, or they started using some new symbol called L. For 100, they started using a. इसके लिए people had to find tedious methods of representing numbers one after the other, which was rather tricky. Why was it tricky? Majorly was because कि repetitively इतने याद करना was not a very easy thing. The number 0 created a number system where the Indo-Arabic system created 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 0 is absence of everything. So a person in a herd could have 0 sheep when he has no sheep at all, and this changed the way people looked at numbers beyond 9. क्योंकि इसके बाद people started using 1 0, 1 0, 1 1, 1 2, and so on, which was a very beautiful way because they started seeing number systems in terms of 10. Why was 10 chosen? Was because they had 10 fingers on the hand. 1 2 3 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and इसके बाद 10 11 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19. So by this system, people have realized that they could create something called the units place, tens place, and hundreds place. What does that mean? This means that all the numbers which are here represented in our number to the rightmost corner were the units place, these were the tens place, these were the hundreds place. So when you write the number 121, it means that we have 100, which is 100. What does 100 mean? 1 2 3 4 5 6, 100 ones, 20 ones, and 1 1. So that's how 121 was represented. 121 was represented as 100 into 1 plus 10 into 2 plus 1 into 1. And this is how we have understood what the Indo-Arabic system is. And I'm sure you understand this because ये हम जब बच्चे थे तब से ये कर रहे हैं. And इसके बाद हम देखेंगे बाद में that there are other systems where the base Indo-Arabic system जो है, इसका जो base है, what is a base? Base is when इतने numbers के पास ये जो repeat होता है. Indo-Arabic system का base 10 है, but there are other systems जहाँ base different है, ये हम हर दिन use करते हैं, and ये हम बाद में देखेंगे, but this is just for you on base 2 system. What is this? It's called binary system. Where is this used? This is a question for you for the subsequent class to understand what base 2 system is. Basically जो हमारा base 10 system है, units digit into 10, tens digit into 1, units digit into 1, tens digit into 10 power 1, hundreds digit into 10 square and so on, ऐसे करते हैं. But here base 2 system में units digit into 1, tens digit into 2, tens digit बोलते नहीं है इसको, 2's digit बोलते हैं, 4's digit, and ऐसे जो है, I would want you to think about it. Think about what binary system is because this is quite important and it will be of real help for you to see. And this is a good question for you and we'll be looking at this in the next class. So let's move on. Let's move on to things which we are really concerned about for today. Our concern for today, objective. What is our objective for today? which is a short class for you guys, a quick introduction. The objective is to understand systems of numbers. So after the prehistoric beings sort of discovered what numbers are, what was the number which they were doing? They were basically doing it for counting, right? They were counting a sheep, a herd of sheep. So ये जब people were counting it, where did they start from? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. ये 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these numbers were also called as counting numbers, and these were naturally easy for humans to understand. So these were also called as natural numbers. So for you guys to understand, natural numbers are used for people. Natural numbers are the basis of numbers, and these are represented by n, and these are the counting numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and so on. This is the fundamental set of numbers which everyone understands. We've been doing this since we were kids, and this is something which we totally understand, which is alright. Now let's look into what the further systems are. As I have mentioned to you that people started looking at zero, at things beyond, after a certain understanding that people saw the necessity of zero. So uske baad kya hai? After this, as you would want to see, Stone Age. This started in Stone Age. People started counting. The concept of whole numbers started around 4000 BC, where early civilization was understanding the importance of zero. It also said that that a few mathematicians from India were placed. But whole numbers are zero along with a set of natural numbers, and this is represented by W. And I hope you understand these, because this has been quite it's a quite quick review for you guys to understand ये जो पूरा concept of number systems, because in the next couple of sessions we will dive deep into the nitty-gritties of this understanding, because udhar is where we look into what real numbers are, because these are bigger set of numbers. So आपको understanding towards natural numbers and whole numbers is very important and crucial. So after a point, people started looking at ये जो numbers थे in a much more deeper sense, क्योंकि people said that numbers were numbers, as these are notations, are representation of quantities or possessions or anything. आपके पास कितने chocolate है? 10 means 10. So you have 10 chocolates. That is okay. If you owe someone, if you had to give someone 100 rupees of money, आपको 100 coins देना है किसी को prehistoric times में, उनको क्या देना है? आपको 100 rupees देना है, तो ठीक है 100 था. तो ऐसे there were a lot of ways in which people were using numbers. Numbers were used for counting, numbers were used for accounting, numbers were used for doing all sorts of things. And in natural numbers and whole numbers itself, people started using these numbers for their daily purposes, which included a lot of different things. So इसके बाद जो है, when people started doing this, eventually they sort of realized that there was something more to numbers. There was something more to numbers in terms of saying that, let's say मेरे पास 10 है, ठीक है, मेरे possession को आपने denote कर दिया numbers पे, but how can I denote something which is not in my possession, something which I have to give someone? Let's say Bhanu owes someone, one of my friends, 100 rupees. इन भानु को देना है, भानु के पास 100 नहीं है, भानु के पास 0 भी नहीं है, भानु किसी को देना है, which means that Bhanu has a lack of 100 rupees. Then how much does Bhanu have? Bhanu has minus 100. So that's when people came up with concept of integers. Negative numbers जो है, as I mentioned, negative numbers were denoted with a minus sign. Negative numbers were same numbers, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but with the idea that these are absence of possession के pro जो है ये है. So people started looking at these numbers, and the set of all the positive, negatives and the zero together was represented by the set z, and these are the numbers which were called integers. So I hope you understand that integers are a set of positive numbers, negative numbers and zero together. And the reason why negative numbers came into existence was because people wanted to denote the absence of a certain possession. मेरे पास जो नहीं है उसको भी represent मुझे कैसे करना है. So if you see, until now the story of mathematics has been in such a way that people were looking at physical quantities across the world and अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि ये फिजिकल क्वांटिटी को हम नंबर्स में कैसे लेके आए हैं. एंड दिस इज द जॉब ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स एंड वी विल बी ऑन हाउ मैथमेटिशियंस विद दिस इनसाइट कि ये जो देखते हुए हाउ डिड मैथमेटिशियंस कम अप टू व्हाट आवर चैप्टर इज व्हिच इज रियल नंबर्स. सो इवेंचुअली पीपल अदर थिंग्स पीपल स्टार्टेड लुकिंग एट बिगर क्वेश्चंस व्हिच हमने किया है. शीप्स के बारे में हमने बात किया है, ठीक है, हॉर्सेस के बारे में बात किया है, नेगेटिव पोसेशन के बारे में बात किया है, और जो जो क्वांटिटीज हैं जो हम क्वांटिफाई नहीं किए हैं अब तक. तो सम टाइम अराउंड 1200 2000 to 2500 BC some person somewhere might have come up with this idea saying that मेरे पास एक पूरा केक है या मेरे पास एक पूरा लेट्स से लॉग है, लॉग ऑफ मेरे पास एक गोल्ड का बिस्किट है पूरा. तो मेरे पास अगर इसका आधा है विच इज 1 पार्ट आउट ऑफ द 2, अगर हमारा पूरा 1 को हम 2 पार्ट्स करेंगे, मेरे पास इसमें 1 पार्ट है, बस 1 पार्ट है, 1 पार्ट आउट ऑफ 2, एज आई मेंशन्ड हियर इन द प्रेजेंटेशन विच वी हैव, 1 पार्ट आउट ऑफ 2 पार्ट्स. देन पीपल सेड एंड दे सेड दैट आई विल रिप्रेजेंट दिस एज 1 डिवाइडेड बाय 2. 1 डिवाइडेड बाय 2 जहाँ 1 डिवाइडेड बाय 2 में हम रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे इसको. एंड पीपल सॉ दैट दिस वाज अ गुड वे टू indicate numbers between 1 and 2. If you look at it, people looked at things between 1 and 2 and they felt that this was a good insight for people to look at in terms of saying ki can we represent things which are not full. So people to look at in terms of saying ki can we represent things which are not full. So a few examples for you guys. 1 by 2, 2 by 3. 2 by 3 क्या है? 2 parts out of 3 parts. 5 by 6, 5 parts out of 6 parts. With one slice taken off, 5 out of 6. So the rigorous definition of what fractions are is that any number of the form p by q, where q is not equal to 0, and p and q are whole numbers, then this number is called. Then this number is called p by q, where q is not equal to 0. And p and q are whole numbers, then this number is called p by q, where q is not equal to 0, and p and q are whole numbers, then this number is called a fraction. P by q, when p and q are whole numbers and q is numbers, then this number is called a fraction. P by q, when p and q are whole numbers and q is numbers, then this number is called a fraction. P by q, when p and q are whole numbers and q is numbers, then this number is called a fraction. P by q, when p and q are whole numbers and q is numbers. Ratio क्या है? Ratio means that having p out of q parts is called a ratio, and the ratio, the numbers which can be written as a ratio is p is to q, which means p by q, p parts out of q parts. Any number which can be written in the form of p parts by q parts is called a ratio, right? So any number which can be written as a ratio. So any number which can be written as a ratio of integers is a rational number. Example. So any number which can be written as a ratio of integers is a rational number. Example. A rational number This is a question for you to think about, and let me highlight this for you. So this is a question for you. Yes, it is, because 2 divided by 1 में लिख सकते हैं 2 को, because it's 2 parts out of 1 part, which is represented in the terms of p by q, where q is not equal to 0, so it is a rational number. Let me look at this subsequent things. A number line. What is a number line? A number line is something which can be represented in the form of any number which can be represented on the number line. The number line is the way in which we represent numbers. हम ये इधर 0, if this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, so on, so on, so on. We know what the number line is. Now let's look at what irrational numbers are, and this is we have sort of come to the end of today's class, because I will leave you at a cliffhanger. Numbers which are on the number line, yes, as we mentioned, any number which is on the number line हमको ढूंढना है. पहले हमने क्या किया है, 0, 1, 2, 3, so on. इधर हमने ढूंढना है 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. उसके बाद हम 0 के लेफ्ट पे we have started looking at -1, -2, -3, so on. We'll be looking at this in the subsequent class because we are sort of running out of time. तो हम क्या देखेंगे इसमें, there are a few numbers which are represented on the number line but cannot be expressed in p by q form. So any number which cannot be represented in the form of p by q, and we'll be looking at the decimal definition of this in the next class. Any number which can be not be represented in the form of p by q, then those numbers are called irrational numbers. And rational numbers plus irrational numbers, putting these sets together will give us the set of real numbers. And this is our chapter where we will be looking into this quite evidently in the next class, where I will be using a whiteboard rather than this, where I will be drawing a lot of diagrams for you guys to understand, where we'll be doing a lot of other fancy stuff. But that's probably it for today. Thanks for joining in. And where are we at? We've done natural numbers, whole numbers, fractions, and rational numbers. Rational numbers are ratio numbers. Any numbers which can be written in the form of a ratio, p by q, where q is not equal to 0, q not equal to 0. Irrational numbers are things which cannot be represented this way. And think about it. Couple of examples. Think about a couple of examples which are irrational numbers. P by q form में जो भी numbers है, we can represent them in terms of decimals. ये decimals में हम represent करते हैं, पर ये not recurring है. मैं इसके बारे में ज़्यादा बात नहीं करूँगा क्योंकि आपको थोड़ा suspense में आपको छोड़ूंगा आज. That this is it. Neelakanta Bhanuprakash here, the fastest human calculator, and this is our first class of 10th class mathematics. Hope to join you guys tomorrow and the next subsequent class, which is day after tomorrow, and let's take this ahead and see how this goes. And the next subsequent class, which is day after tomorrow, and let's take this ahead